Are you scared yet? Let's bring in our guest to talk about the IRS's so-called conspiracy. Amy Kremer is chair of the Tea Party Express, and Julian Epstein is a Democratic strategist. And thanks to you both for joining me on my first show. Amy, I'd like to start with you because, so this week we saw some folks from different groups testifying about sort of what they went through. But we also learned this week that, and over the last couple of weeks, that some of the groups actually would not have qualified based on the requirement for the sort of social welfare activities. And then we also learned that it turns out that more conservative groups actually were approved than liberal groups, which seems to undercut some of the argument here.
Well, look, it doesn't matter how many more were approved and weren't approved. I mean, the bottom line is the IRS went above and beyond its power. They admitted that they were wrong in doing this, and it's a violation of our First Amendment rights. And it's not just about Tea Party or conservative. Every single American should be concerned about this because a government bureaucracy is being used to target people for their political beliefs.
But again, but let's be clear, though. Let's remember that what we're talking about here is what they were looking for was whether or not these groups would qualify for a certain kind of tax status. And essentially, people were sort of sorting the information out based on, different words and phrases, and again, trying to determine levels of political activity. I mean, there's no evidence that this is, the White House and this sort of grander scheme. Why isn't it possible this is just people being really stupid in the way they were doing their jobs?
Well, first of all, we don't know that the White House wasn't involved.
Well, we
actually
do at this
don't
point.
know.
We have no
we
evidence.
Don't care.
That's
No,
not true.
no, we
There's
don't.
No evidence
we haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet.
There's no evidence.
We haven't gotten to the bottom of it. Karen, then tell me who is responsible for it.
Okay.
Tell me who's responsible for it.
You know what, Amy? In this show, we're going to deal with facts, and at this point, there's no evidence of it, so we're going to not say that it is. Okay?
We can't say that they weren't either because we don't know who is responsible for it.
We can't say that the sky was never purple either, but, we know that it's not. Julian, I want to switch to you here because one of the things that strikes me, and I know you know the law on this very well, having been through sort of the independent special prosecutor process myself when I was working in the Clinton administration, there seems to me to be this sort of element of be careful what you wish for because, as you know, once you turn that on, they have very broad powers. And particularly if a number of these groups actually don't qualify, actually aren't, the level of political activity is such that they wouldn't qualify, they're going to be liable for that, right?
Yes, you're right on today, Karen. And I think I would agree with Amy that the IRS should not be engaged in selective targeting. We all agree on that.
Of course.
But the two things that we have found out is one, is that the Inspector General found, and every piece of evidence has indicated there is no White House involvement, no Obama political team involvement. So you can keep saying, when did you stop beating your wife? It's an irresponsible thing to say on television. That's point one. Point two is we are learning that many of these groups, even though the selective targeting was wrong, many of these groups did not, in fact, qualify for tax-exempt status. One group out of California, CVFC, for example, claimed to the IRS they would not be involved in any political activities, yet the majority of their expenditures were for radio ads to elect a Republican. And so I think you're exactly right. You're going to start hearing the Republicans, their calls for a special prosecutor are going to start dwindling very quickly because they have to worry about considerable exposure. Many of these groups, in fact, if they didn't qualify for tax-exempt status, which they probably didn't, they may owe back taxes.
Right.
It's possible that they may have made false statements to the IRS. It's possible that donors would be responsible for gift taxes, as you have pointed out, Karen.
Right.
So I think that the accusations and the rhetoric have gone way out of proportion here as to what's happened. There's no question that the Cincinnati office of the IRS was wrong in doing the targeting, but there's also probably very little question that many of these groups should have had. It didn't come from Washington. Have you read the IRS report?
Washington. We have testimony.
We have testimony that people said that that part of their procedure was to check with certain refer them to people in Washington who are experts in a particular area.
And you have two instances in Washington where they told the Cincinnati office to cease and desist.
This is the thing.
Final point to you very quickly.
OFA, MoveOn.org were both very helpful in helping elect Obama in 2008. Why is it that no one was concerned about the 501c4?
So let's agree with Amy. That's a good point.
Right.
Amy, I agree with you. I agree that groups on the left, I think, should have this same kind of scrutiny.
Right.
That does not change the point, though, that many of the groups on the right that were trying to get this tax-exempt status had no business getting it. They did not qualify under the law. If your argument is that the groups on the left should get the same scrutiny, I'll agree with you. If your argument is the groups on the right didn't deserve it,
guys, we're going to have to get to the bottom of who did this.
We're going to leave it there. I completely agree with you. There shouldn't be any kind of targeting. But, you know, part of what this is this arms race, frankly, on both sides that I think Citizens United just really exploded us into a whole new territory where both sides are saying, well, I'm not going to disarm if you're not going to disarm. And I think the people are disturbed by that. Amy Kremer, chair of the Tea Party Express, and Democratic strategist Julian Epstein, thank you so much for your time today.
Congratulations on the new show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Yes, congratulations.